And so I started putting this show together, and also it's a commentary on the times in times of economic shrinkage when you can't afford to buy giant paintings, and you have to satisfy that mania in you that's a collector. And I know anybody who's a collector of anything know the addiction, and it is an addiction. These paintings are really intimate, and they represent my philosophy that it really doesn't make any difference what size the painting is. It's what's inside the frame that counts. I had the two greatest art revelations of my life when I was in Amsterdam, I think in the early 80s. And I've been studying art for all my life, very early age. And I'd seen the Dutch painters were some of my favorites, and I'd seen Rembrandt's The Night Watch in 100 books, and I always saw it. It's this big bunch of guys, cigars, like the Dutch master sitting around. And I finally went to the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, and I came around into the room where the Night Watch was, and it's a gigantic painting. I mean, it's gigantic. It's a big mural. I go, wow, and it's made such an impression on me that I thought, if I ever do an art show, I'm going to have art that size to make that kind of impression. And on the same day, I walked down the hall and walked into the room that had all the Vermeers, the Johannes Vermeers. And Vermeer is one of my favorite painters in the world. And these are the paintings I saw in books for years and years. And they're tiny. They're like this big. And I go, how can a painting of that size make such a huge impact? And so I filed that back in my memory too, and I thought, well, maybe someday I'll do a small painting. And these are very, when you go out and see them, spend some time with them, because they're really, really great paintings. And they represent the distillation of the artist's vision. They don't got time to, slather paint on, 10 feet of canvas. They have to get what they're going to try to say very quickly, succinctly, and clearly. And they communicate that to you in a painting that's 12 by 12, and that's it's like a 45 as compared to an album. It's like, if you can't say it in 3 minutes, you don't need to say it, And so that's kind of the distillation of these paintings here. And this is called Chicanitas, and size doesn't matter, but maybe that's just me. This is the painting by Carlos Almaraz called 4th Street Bridge. You'll see it out there, and it's one of the landmarks of East LA, where the Chicano painters in LA first started. It's what I really like about painting in general is brushwork. I like the quality. You can see the smearability. You can see the hand of the artist in the painting. Chicano artists are unique in that they never gave up the brush. They didn't fall into isms, that ism, and they just were always painted. It comes out of a Mexican handcrafted tradition where it's the artistic intention straight from the brain through the fingers and onto the canvas. This one's called 4th Street Bridge. This one's called Morning Bridge. It's another Carlos Almaraz painting. And when you see it in the book and you see it in life, you see how thick he uses that painting. And it just has a very malleable quality. It's very visceral. I love the impasto quality of that painting. This is a little bridge in Silver Lake, or Echo Park, it's in East LA. It's right in the center of it, and everybody paints it a lot. And this is called Morning Bridge. This is by Elsa Flores, who was actually Carlos Almaraz's wife, and this is a encaustic. It's a wax and paint, oil paint. She is very much influenced by Carlos in her brush strokes and her imagery. This is Elsa Flores. This is a new one. This is the thing about Chicano art. A lot of people want to say, well, it just occurred between 1968 and 1975, and then there was a post-Chicano period, and then there was the post-Chicano period. And I really disagree with that. What I think, from my experience, is that this Chicano art and the Chicano aesthetic is an ongoing thing. We're just in the beginning of it right now. We're involved in the largest wave of immigration ever to hit this country ever in the history. Right now, and the difference between this wave and previous waves is that this wave is in every state simultaneously. You can go to South Carolina, Rhode Island, Ohio, Michigan, Hawaii, Alaska. There's large and thriving Latino communities, primarily Mexican. Almost 3/4 of the pie is Mexican. And so every generation of new Chicanos that are coming up gets to interpret what Chicano aesthetic is for their generation. They're just as qualified to say what that is than any generation that went before them. So anyways, the vision of the Chicano experience, it keeps evolving, and it's going to keep evolving. One of the statistics is that of this large wave of immigration that's in the country right now, 80% of them are under 25. There's going to be a baby boom, a Latino baby boom like we've never seen before in every state simultaneously. It's going to fundamentally change the demographic of the United States. Artists are the advanced censors of any culture. They go out there and they tell you what's going to happen because they, through their sensitivity, they feel it and they make interpretations of it. This particular painting is by a kid in El Paso, Texas. He's the latest wave. His name is Work. They all have different like tagger handles, and his name is Work, W-E-R-C, but his name is Yari Alvarez. He does a lot with border issues, and I love this painting. Get up close to it, not too close because it belongs to me. But get up close to it, you see the various levels of these paints here. I mean, there's collage, there's hand painting, there's applied images, there's beer labels, and he keeps repeating these things, and it's really amazing. I'm waiting for him to do larger paintings, but this guy's name's Work. Here's another Work painting. And it's called El Pollo or Pollitos, or quién sabe qué. It's two little kids playing with a hose, and there's all kinds of levels in it too. It's well painted, and it's provocative in what it's saying and what it's asking of you. And I love how the hose turns into a snake at the bottom. Yeah, that's the last thing you see, huh? Here's another young kid, Carlos Don Juan. I'd love to have that name, Carlos Don Juan. And he's from Dallas, Texas, and he's a university instructor right now. And every night he comes home and he paints. And these are of his little tribe, his little hip hop kind of backward hat guys. And he paints them on wood. I love the freshness of this plywood and the watercolor. He uses watercolor and spray paint and oil painting, and the images are really provocative. This is Carlos Don Juan. And these are cool images, you know. It's just like they're mysterious and they're funny and they're playful, and they're I don't know how else to describe them, but they're fresh. I mean, all the kids say fresh. I mean, these are really fresh. I love this one. I don't know art, but I know what I like, you know. These are two paintings by Ana Fernandez. We just spent the day with her. She's lovely. She's born in Mexico and somewhere near Veracruz, but came to this country early and lives in San Francisco and paints. And these are truly spectacular little paintings. And they're oil paintings. They're very, very well painted. Just check out the floor. It's just having the brushstroke, and they're provocative, and they're erotic, and they're mysterious. And what is she doing? I don't know, what is she doing? She's ironing her hair, or bracing for impact, or I don't know, but they get these paintings drive me crazy. There's two of them, and then there's two of them. I talked to her today, and she said it's a reaction because when she goes into these little apartments in San Francisco, you know, everything is very compact. Everything is almost like a boat. Every place has this little place, and she opened a drawer, and this ironing board fell out, and she never saw it, so she started playing around with it. And this is Ana Fernandez, and she lives in San Francisco. This is a painting by Diane Gamboa. She paints her little tribe too, this kind of after-hours, omnisexual Hollywood guys and girls. This is Diane Gamboa. She's in the second tier of Chicano, or not second tier, second wave of Chicano artists. She's like Friends of Osco. I'll explain that as we go along. Here's another one of Diane Gamboa. They're very expressionist, German expressionists. They're very kind of raw and provocative. This is another one of her neighborhood, I think Down Figueroa it's called, maybe. This is Finding Jesus at the Taco Stand, another one of her paintings of her neighborhood, and this is another one. And I just love these. Isn't that cute painting? That's just nice down the street there. I just love the way she uses these various paintings. And the Fields of Green. These are Margaret Garcia. This is Yolanda Gonzalez. She paints portraits a lot, and I love the way she just stylizes these various women. I love this one. This is nice and green. It kind of looks like Degas, Toulouse-Lautrec, kind of in there, but with a definite Chicano bent. And that's the thing is now Chicanos are coming to be recognized. When I started the tour, it was like Chicano is not a school of painting. They don't make fine art. They make agitprop folk art. And I said, well, no, they don't. and here's that. One day I'm gonna put all these paintings up in a room, and you're gonna see what it is. See that school. And the thing that informs the Chicano school of painting is not a style of painting. They don't paint the same way. But what they do is they paint their particular experience of being Chicano and how they look at the world through Chicano eyes. And it can be religious, it can be sacrilegious, it can be historical, it can be abstract, it can be sociological, it can be photorealistic. But when you put all these pieces of pie together, you see you get the 360 of the feel, the sabor of what it is to experience the world through Chicano eyes. And that's what informs the Chicano school. And as such, it's an ever-evolving school. It evolves because what is the South Carolina Chicano going to look like? Y'all. I don't know, but I really want to see, because we're going to have that, and it's going to change. And again, it goes to the thing is what is really the definition of America, and we're evolving that definition, or at least getting some acceptance of a different type of American definition. It didn't all take place in Boston. Before there was Boston, there was California, Texas, Arizona, Colorado, all those places, montaña. And we're here in Monterey. This is Yolanda Gonzalez, and she's coming. Here's some watercolors by Gronk. Gronk is an LA artist who came out of LA. He was part of the OSCO school. It was the second Chicano artist collective in LA, and OSCO means nausea. And they wanted people to be nauseated by their painting because they wanted to upset them. They were proto-punk, and they came up and they wanted to really confront their audiences. These aren't particularly confrontive, but I love the way that he puts on paint very quickly. And these are watercolors. He puts it on very quickly. They're very kind of primitive, expressionist, African art, Picasso elements of there. This is Gronk. This is Jacinto Guevara. He's from LA. And I just love this painting because it just reminds me of kind of Southwest Georgia O'Keeffe. It's an agave and it's so lush when you see it in person. It's just the lushness of the landscape, the Southwest. And that says as much about Chicano as anything else. This is another painting by Jacinto Guevara. I just love it because it's so sweet. I mean, and you can see the brush strokes in it very carefully. This is Roberto Gutierrez, and he was the guy I knew that had to exist, but I didn't know where he was. I knew that there had to be a urban folklorist, and Roberto Gutierrez came from, and he's been there all the time. Mainly, he worked at Self-Help Graphics. He never went out and tried to have a gallery or have beyond outside recognition other than Self-Help Graphics, which is the Chicano Center in LA. It's where all the early artists came through. But he documents the city, and anybody who's ever been in East LA will recognize his paintings right away. This is Adan Hernandez from Texas, from San Antonio, Texas, and he's the inventor of Chicano Noir. Things happen at night in his paintings. And this is a bar painting, and it's really good. The thing about, when I first started collecting, I started collecting the LA artists because I was in LA, but very quickly in the process, I was introduced to the artists from Texas, and mainly from San Antonio because that was the other center. And I saw immediately that they were related. They weren't painted exactly the same images, but they were cousins. These were Texas cousins to the LA cousins, and they had their own distinctive brand of Chicano art, but you could tell it was the same DNA. And this is Adan Hernandez. This one is by Leo Limon. He was an acolyte of Carlos Almaraz, who you saw earlier, and he's whimsical, playful, community-oriented, mythological. He does a lot of Aztec mythology in his paintings, and this one's interesting. There's a painting on plexiglass, This is Jose Lozano, and he's very, very meticulous in his paintings. These are lucheros, lucha libre wrestlers, and he uses these masked wrestlers. You see how even in the backgrounds there's drawings upon drawings upon drawings. He never quit. He keeps reformatting them in different formats. He paints on the frames, and they're just really into this. His sense of color is amazing. I really like it. There again, it's hand drawn. Those are cool. I like the lighter tone. This is another young kid from Corpus Christi, Texas, named Joe Peña, and this is the first one I saw, and he was doing these Mexican meats, you know, and I said, God, that's Francis Bacon. It's not literally bacon, but you know, close enough. But and it looked just like Francis Bacon. And I thought, wow, this is. And then you know, you go to classical roots, and this is Rembrandt. Rembrandt was doing the same things. These are different Mexican meats that you grew up with: tripas and liver and tongue and mollitas and oh. I remember that sticking out of a pot, and all day it would be cooking. And, oh God, I couldn't take it. But it makes a nice painting. This is Joe painting. They're really nice. They're really delicate oil paintings on wood paneling. This is Joe Peña, and this is Sandy Rodriguez. She's from L.A. This is a self-portrait of her, and no more need be said. I think, you know, she's La Payasa. I think that is the name of it. She's full of life. This is 4 paintings by Frank Romero, who was one of the original Los Four. He does like freeway landscapes and downtowns in a very folkloric but sophisticated sense. LA, and especially early LA. That's one of the hallmarks of Chicano painting. It's simultaneously sophisticated and naive. And they use sophisticated symbols in a very naive way, very sophisticated symbols in a very naive way. Did I say the same thing twice?
Yeah.
The opposite, you know? But because all of the artists that are in the show are either university and or art school trained. They're influenced by world art as well as their Mexican heritage, and that's really the definition of the Chicano aesthetic. It's Mexican heritage meets urban angst, because when they cross the border and they're forced into cities, that not complacent, but pastoral tranquility is bunched up against, you know, housing projects and those things in the city, and so it produces a kind of a fracture that's very indicative of early Chicano art. This is Frank Romero's daughter, Sonia Romero, and she is coming, man. She's really coming with these portraits and she's doing great prints too. Chicanos are great printmakers as well as painters, as well as pastel artists. This is Ricardo Ruiz, and the only reason I know that he exists is I traveled a great deal, and I was down in Corpus Christi, Texas. And there he was. He said when he was a kid, his sister and their girlfriends used to go in the room, and they'd be laughing and singing and playing music and smoking, you know. And they would come out of the room all dolled up, you know, with these hairdos and makeup and so. And so he does these little paintings of them, and they're cool. This is Ricardo. I love this one. Ricardo Ruiz. Isn't that cool? And each one has its own personality, but when you get up really close, you really see the brush strokes and you see the handmade quality. This is by Martha Sanchez. She's from San Antonio, but lives in Philadelphia now. She came to see the Cheech and Chong show one night, and I'm doing this character, Alice Bowie, so she made a painting of that. It looks kind of like Quasimodo, but with a guitar. Masotas, yeah, there we go. This is This is Eloy Torres. He's one of the original LA Chicanos, and these are portraits here, and I love this one because it looks like kind of African prince with some kind of African headdress, but he's just basically standing in front of a building. That's his wife, and these are Randy and Scott Rodarte, and they are with a band called Olin, and they're his friends. But I this looks just like a Hogarth painting from the Getty that I saw. The painting of David is very commonplace, everyday characters. Very well painted. And really caught the expression. And there again, I don't know what I like, but I'm in Aurora, but I know what I like. These are John Valadez paintings. John Valadez is one of the seminal Chicano painters. And when I first opened the first show in San Antonio, where there was a big uproar between old line Chicanos that said Chicano art is only political art. They can't have any other art besides political art, be Chicanos and bullshit, And so there was this big uproar between the old line and the new wave that was coming in. And so we had this discussion and on the panel, and John Valadez was on the panel, and so as the discussion went back and forth, this older woman who looked like she had seen everything Chicano in her lifetime, and she said, and she asked John Valadez, so, well, considering everything that went on today, do you still consider yourself a Chicano painter? And he said, only if it bothers you. And that was, for me, the definition of what a Chicano painter is. It has to these are great. They're painted on tile, and they're just luminous on the wall. And John Valadez does water better than anybody I've ever seen. There's a very typical Patsy painting. It's the room's in motion, and she's equally influenced by Mexican heritage as well as Walt Disney. This is right out of The Sorcerer's Apprentice, exactly, the dancing brooms, and because we were children of Hollywood, we came up in that era. Sergio Vasquez, and he's a new guy. Well, he's not new, but he's new to the public because he's been painting for years, and just kind of recently emerged out of LA. I like the texture of his paintings, these cats. No, this one's cool. This guy's Vincent Valdez. This is a landscape of LA at night, on fire. It's small. He's from San Antonio. He's one of the new wave of young guys, and they're technically really proficient, and they give you their view of Chicanismo, and that's it. Okay.